Today, we're going to decode one of the most powerful and, honestly, most misunderstood parts of your body, the thyroid gland. So let's just jump right in. What if one small gland, this tiny little thing, was secretly pulling the strings on your mood, your memory, even your metabolism? Well, guess what? It is. And we're going to break down exactly how it does it. All right, first things first, we got to frame this thing the right way. We're not just talking about another organ here. Based on all the research, it's much bigger than that. It's basically the body's master regulator. So how do you even picture what it does? Easy. Just think of it like the thermostat for your entire body. It literally controls the speed of almost everything. If that thermostat is cranked up too high, you're just burning through energy like crazy. But if it's set too low, yeah, everything grinds to a halt. And its reach is just huge. It's got its hands in everything. We're talking your mood, your emotions, which, by the way, is exactly why thyroid problems can sometimes look like emotional disorders. It's also critical for how sharp you think, your heart rate, how much gas you have in the tank each day. And this one's a big one the research hits on again and again. It's absolutely essential for a baby's brain development. This tiny gland is a serious powerhouse. Okay, but what happens when that master regulator starts to go on the fritz? Let's talk about the most common problem of all. What happens when that thermostat just gets turned way down? This slowdown, it has a name. It's called hypothyroidism. It's pretty simple, really. It's just a condition where the thyroid gland isn't making enough of those critical hormones. And the result? Well, just like we said, that metabolic thermostat gets turned way, way down, slowing everything in your body with it. Okay, but here's where it gets a little tricky. Hypothyroidism isn't just one size fits all. First, you've got overt hypothyroidism. That's when your TSH, that's the thyroid stimulating hormone, is high, and your actual thyroid hormones are low. The symptoms here? Usually pretty obvious. But then there's subclinical hypothyroidism. This is the sneaky one. Your TSH is still high, but your hormone levels are somehow still testing in the normal range. The sources all call this a milder, often hidden form, and man, can it be tough to pin down. So, what does this slowdown actually do to you? Let's start with the control center, your brain. The research here is pretty clear. A low thyroid state has some really profound effects. We're talking about it disrupting the creation of new brain cells in your hippocampus, the part responsible for learning and memory. It can mess with how neurons find their way around during development. It can shrink key cell populations. It can even stop neurons from maturing the way they're supposed to. And on top of all that, the sources tie it directly to problems with motor control. And believe me, this isn't just a brain problem. Not at all. What we're looking at here is a system-wide ripple effect, one that touches pretty much every single part of your health. So how wide is that ripple really? Get this. One study we looked at found that a staggering 32%, almost 1 in 3, patients with type 2 diabetes also had hypothyroidism. That's not some small overlap, folks. That is a major, major connection. And let's hit another area, reproductive health. The research shows a really similar story. Another study found that 28% of women who were struggling with primary infertility also had hypothyroidism. Again, that's another critical link you just can't ignore. But the story doesn't even stop there. The source material connects the dots to a whole bunch of other problems. We're talking an increased risk of chronic kidney disease, problems with how your heart controls its own rhythm, and even potential links to certain cancers. It just goes to show you the thyroid really is at the center of so much of what keeps us healthy. All right, so you're probably thinking, if this thing is so common and so important, it must be super easy to diagnose, right? Well, you'd think so, but the research shows it's actually more like trying to solve a really complex puzzle. Let's talk about one of the biggest pieces of that puzzle, something the research brings up over and over, testing for TSH. So picture this. You go to the doctor, but first, you've had a meal. Now, what happens is your TSH levels naturally change right after you eat. So if the test is run then, without you fasting, the result could be totally misleading. It could completely miss a diagnosis, especially that sneaky subclinical kind. The takeaway here is huge. For an accurate picture, that test really needs to be done while you're fasting. And look, this isn't just some minor detail. One of the research papers puts it bluntly, and I'm quoting here, interference in thyroid function tests can lead to misdiagnosis and mismanagement. It doesn't get much clearer than that. The stakes for getting this right are just incredibly high. And it's not just about fasting. There are other hurdles to clear. The sources talk about how the normal ranges for tests aren't always tailored to different groups of people. Or sometimes a person's own antibodies can actually mess with the test and skew the results. And to top it all off, there are even some rare genetic conditions out there that can look and feel exactly like a thyroid disorder, making this whole puzzle even tougher to crack. So let's say you've navigated the puzzle and you finally have a diagnosis. What's next? Well, for hypothyroidism, the standard approach we see in the research is a synthetic hormone. It's called levothyroxine, or LT4 for short. And the goal is really straightforward. Just replace the hormone that your thyroid isn't making enough of and get all those body systems back in balance.
Okay, we've gone through a lot here. So let's zoom out for a second and look at the big picture. What does all of this really mean?
I think it boils down to 3 key things. Number 1, don't underestimate the thyroid. It might be small, but it's that mighty master regulator. Number 2, when it slows down, hypothyroidism, the effects are felt everywhere. They ripple out and hit your brain, your heart, your metabolism, the whole system. And number 3, figuring this out isn't a walk in the park. It's a really complex puzzle, and getting it right absolutely depends on using the proper testing. And that leaves us with one final fascinating thought. Some of the most interesting stuff in the research points to a link between our gut bacteria and thyroid problems, even autoimmune ones, which really makes you wonder, right? As we learn more and more, what if the next big frontier in thyroid health isn't in our neck at all, but deep inside our gut? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.